So thank you so much for taking out time for this. And the hot topic is the opening up of the Indian legal market, and BCI recently announced the rules that will allow the entry of foreign law firms and foreign lawyers.
Yes.
So how do you see that's going to benefit UK lawyers?
Well, so I'm chair-elect of the Bar Council of England and Wales. So I represent about 18,000 of specialist advocates and senior advocates. We do advice and in particular representation in court at home in England, but also in international dispute forums, including importantly international arbitration. So we're looking at the new rules, which the BCI have shown great leadership in producing rules, in particular with an eye towards representation in international arbitration. So what I'd like to see is the ability for Indian law firms to instruct specialists like myself. I practice in construction and engineering law in particular, and I am a specialist advocate. So for an international arbitration, it would be seated in India, and I would work with, say, the Indian firm to do the best case I possibly could before that tribunal.
Okay. And recently when BCI was visiting the UK, there was an MOU that was signed between BCI and the Bar Council of England and Wales and the Law Society.
Yeah.
Has there been any further development in exchange program related to lawyers?
We've been talking about, in fact today, about exchanges and development. I know, for example, the Pegasus program, already there is some exchanges going on. There's more that can be done. I think the best route for that will be for the Bar Council of England, my Bar Council, to work with our 4 Inns of Court to help and assist with arrangements for those exchanges. Actually, though, one of the great things about having this international arbitration will be that international lawyers, Indian lawyers, will meet and work with English lawyers and vice versa. So that will itself provide a very fulfilling, I hope, professional experience and develop the skills of both sets of.
What differences do you see between the role played by the Bar Council of India and that performed by the Bar Council of England and Wales in furthering the cause of the legal profession?
Yeah, the Bar Council of India has a much wider role because they are both the regulator and the representative body of a group of, I think, over 2 million lawyers. My organisation seems very small by comparison because we have only 18,000. But I can tell you that, that my members are very active in the international field. About 13% of our income comes from international work. That's about £440 million a year. So there is a lot that can be done there. And I think at the moment we have in the UK quite a liberal regime. So Indian lawyers already are coming over to act in cases in international arbitration and other dispute forums, many of whom are now associated with particular sets of chambers. And I'd really like to see, on a reciprocal basis, that happening here.
Yeah, you mentioned that. So I was going to ask you, there are lots of Indian lawyers who are practicing in the UK.
Yeah.
How has your experience been? What do you think of Indian lawyers and law firms?
Well, I've come across Indian lawyers on the other side on cases, on a couple of arbitrations. They've been first class. Obviously, we share many things. There's obviously the English language, but there's also the common law system. England and Wales, together with India, are probably the 2 biggest fields, and the United States, I suppose, of common law. And of course, many commercial transactions are done in English and have a seat in London, including many Indian multinationals.
Okay. And I know you're speaking on the international arbitration
Yeah.
topic at the conference. So do you see India becoming a hub for international arbitration, and what we can do to really make it a reality?
At the heart of this is the ability for India to grow its international arbitration hubs, to grow its international arbitration market. And I think the way of doing it, it will grow the pie while sharing a small part of it with other parts, other lawyers from other jurisdictions, including English lawyers. I think that way it truly will achieve. And if you look at the jurisdictions that are succeeding in international arbitration at the moment, London and Singapore, to some extent also Dubai and Hong Kong,
Yeah.
they tend to have a liberal regime where lawyers from all jurisdictions can come together in that centre to have the arbitration determined.
Okay. You did mention that you've raised this issue with the BCI regarding to do away with registration for individual lawyers, you mentioned. Is there any other rule or concern that you have put before Bar Council of India in terms of the rules?
Yeah. Certainly, I think there is a lack of clarity about whether or not we as English lawyers can come to India to advise domestic Indian clients on international law, not talking about advising on Indian law. I'm only talking about international law, and I think that could be clarified. And I think there are also issues about where the instructions come from for the unregistered section. I think it's Rule 3. At the moment, it's not clear exactly where the instruction needs to come from.
Yeah.
I don't see why there should be any difficulty in the instruction coming from within India rather than necessarily an office outside India. I don't myself understand if that is a problem, why it can't be relaxed.
Okay, okay. And I'm going to move to a topic that is being spoken about in the UK a lot on professional ethics and the role of lawyers as gatekeepers in the prevention of economic offences. How do lawyers reconcile their duties to their clients and adherence to law and regulations?
It's a hot topic, as you say, at the moment. But I think for us as barristers, we have quite a clear ethical code, which is that everyone deserves representation. We have in the English bar has something called the cab rank rule, and that is rather like a taxi. You have to take the first person that comes along. And if you start judging your clients, you're actually usurping the role of first the prosecution authorities and then secondly the judge. You're becoming lawyer, judge and jury. Our job is to represent our clients to the best of our abilities within our ethical code. Obviously, we do not participate or allow wrongdoing, but we necessarily will represent people that have committed criminal or civil wrongs, and in that sense we have to do so without fear or favour and not judging our clients. Equally though, the other side of the coin is we should not be associated with the causes of our client. So we have to retain a professional independence from our clients. And those two things I think complement each other. And actually I think they're good for the rule of law, they're good for the efficiency of the justice system.
And while the Bar Council of India is quite openly in favour of the party currently in power in India, does Bar Council of England and Wales have any political affiliations?
No. We are strictly a non-partisan and non-party political organisation. And I think that's essential for us because our members vote for all sorts of different parties. I'm not there as a Labour or a Conservative chair of the bar. I'm there as the chair of the bar for all barristers. So at least in the English and Welsh setting, it's important for us to maintain that independence.
Immigration lawyers in the UK have recently been attacked by the Conservative Party for thwarting the government's policies to prevent people from crossing the channel in small boats. I also recently read a news piece which mentioned that you criticized the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak for making his remarks against asylum lawyers. Was there any backlash after your remarks?
Yeah, this is the question about how all of us address lawyers, and it comes back to a point I was making about we should not be associated with the causes of our clients.
Yeah.
Clearly, if there's a group of lawyers that have been fraudulent, committed wrongdoing, they should be pursued and by the regulatory authorities, and if appropriate, by the police, and they should be condemned accordingly. What I disagree with is to paint all lawyers as in one particular frame of mind, so that's really where my comments come from. It's to try to maintain the independence of the profession and to, again, dissociate lawyers from the causes of their clients.
Okay. And how do you see AI impacting the legal profession and lawyers?
It's a very interesting question. Obviously, there's been one or two cases, including in the United States, where AI has been used to bad effect. So, for example, one famous large language model actually ended up producing a submission which had references to cases which simply didn't exist.
Yeah.
So it has to be, it's obviously here to stay, and we need to use it. And we can't shut out progress. On the other hand, I think its uses in truth are going to be relatively limited. So they may be more in the area of the of issues of disclosure and searches and other aspects. I suspect for the sorts of work that we as barristers do, in particular submissions, advices, and of course in court, I think it's unlikely to have a massive impact or change rather what we already do.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon.